Based here in Nashville, Tennessee, and what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about today is careers in the FBI, some of the crime that we've been seeing, how it has changed quite dramatically since I was in high school. Wow, almost 31 years ago. You know, I had to sit here. I appreciate all you guys sitting here because you know what? When I had speakers over there coming up, I wasn't paying attention, and you guys did a great job. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I started with the FBI right out of community college in New York City in 1988. I graduated high school from Abraham Lincoln High School in New York City. I didn't do very well, I'm going to be honest with you. I was raised by a single parent. You know, every year when I went from 10th grade to 11th grade or 11th grade to 12th grade, you know, I got that pat on the back. My mom was very happy that I was moving forward and going up. I said I was going to get my act together when I went to community college, and didn't really happen. Opportunity opened up to become a file clerk with the FBI in 1988. I was 20 years old at the time. I like to joke and say it was part of my mom's grand plan to keep me out of jail. You know, what a good way to do that, embed me into the FBI. I guess now I had some choices that I had to make. I had people who I was hanging out with who really weren't very good influences or anything like that, so had some choices. You know, when I was a kid, my teachers used to threaten me all the time, and they always used to say, that's going to go on your permanent record card. Has anyone here ever heard that before? You know, and I learned all the things that I did in public school and in junior high school. High school was a little different. It went on my public record. It didn't matter. That was all a myth. But now you guys have it a lot harder than I do because you guys have a permanent record card, and that's on social media. It's on Facebook, it's on Instagram, and all that stuff. I'm going to talk just a little bit about that. You know, I really try to spend a lot more time going into the kids who, you know, I have a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old who don't really like to, you know, utilize their common sense all the time, and you know how 10-year-olds and 13-year-olds are. And one of the things that I always have to emphasize to them, that every single thing that they do online, there is unfortunately going to be a record about that. When I went into the FBI, there was really no record of that. And I'm going to talk about the applicant process with the FBI because this is probably the coolest job in the world. I mean, I have so much fun. I'm going to talk about some of the things that I've done in my career, some of the crazy things that I have seen. You know, in the last presentation, Dr. Wellborn talked about don't be a Richard. And, you know, that kind of came back because, you know, in my career, I think I put hundreds of people in jail, a lot of them in white-collar crime. This is crime where they were doing fraud, where they were ripping other people off, not necessarily when you're putting a gun to somebody's head, but when you're manipulating them to do something, and every single one of them had that characteristic that he was talking about on Don't Be a Richard. Every single one of them was looking for a way to take a shortcut. They had short-term thinking. They really wanted to exceed at something, but they did not want to put the hard work in. And that's one of the really big takeaways about that. So I started with the FBI as a file clerk in New York City. I went back to school at night. I finally got my act together in my 20s. I went back to college. I finished my bachelor's degree at City College in New York. I started working on my MBA in finance and technology. And in 1994, at age 26, I had an opportunity to apply to become a special agent with the FBI. In order to be an FBI agent, you have to be between the ages of 23 and 37 years old with a 4-year college degree, 3 years of work-related experience, never convicted of a felony or anything like that. What do we investigate within the FBI? Our number one priority is to prevent acts of terrorism. And unfortunately today, with what is going on in the world with ISIS, the threats that we see recently, you know, everyone in our office got called down to Chattanooga when we had the individual down there who went out and shot up the Marine Corps recruiting facility. So we are spending so much of our time and our effort prosecuting the individuals who are responsible for this and working with state and local law enforcement officers to really try to do things that we can to prevent these acts of terrorism. We're also, the number 2 priority for the FBI is counterintelligence. Individuals that are stealing economic secrets, getting into our critical infrastructures, causing damage. The number 3 priority is cybercrime. That's where I spend the majority of my time working the past 10 years. I don't think that is going to stop. And also violent crime. There's been quite a bit of a transformation over the past couple of years in what we've been working on with violent crime. Violent crime still continues. It's on a regular basis. When I was over at the FBI Academy, it was a 16-week academy where you learn everything you possibly can about law enforcement in 16 or so weeks. A lot of emphasis on physical fitness. We have a physical fitness test where you have to run, you have to do pull-ups, you have to do a shuttle run, and sit-ups. Push-ups too. And these are things that are really, really important. You know, getting in shape is not the place to be within the FBI Academy. We really expect people to be in shape. You learn everything you can about the legal system. You learn everything about crime. But the most important thing that they teach us to do is interact with people. We have a mock city over there. It's called Hogan's Alley, where we are working on interviews. They give us a project where all of a sudden you have to walk into a bar, and there's all role players that are over there, and you have to go there and you have to interview the guy who's sitting at the bar. And before you can do that, you have to get through 3 or 4 other people who completely get in your face, and all they try to do is escalate the situation, and your job as an FBI agent is always to de-escalate it. When people ask me what's the number 1 skill set for an FBI agent, I would have to say, you know, we're going to talk about, we do carry guns, we do a lot of shooting, is probably communication skills. It's really how you go out, how you talk to people. I have seen so many people fail out of the FBI Academy because they're just not used to criticism. They don't know how to de-escalate a situation where all of a sudden they go over, they're dealing with a role player or something like that, and the role player has a paintball gun and shoots the guy in the head. Why does he do that? Because he de-escalated the situation. So often that we go out and I end up having to communicate with people. I was just down in Chattanooga 2 weeks ago dealing with the shooting case, and all of a sudden I'm getting leads where I have to go out and interview a guy who knew the shooter. And the first thing that people would say to me is, am I in trouble? Why are you here? And you can start to see the tension going up in each of these individuals. And your job as an FBI agent is to bring down the level of stress, the level of anxiety, so you can communicate better with people. Within the FBI Academy, we learn to shoot a ton of different weapons. We're all issued Glock 22. Let me get a show of hands. How many people here have shot guns in this office, in the place? I didn't say shoot in the building, but yeah, quite a bit. When I went to the FBI Academy, I was probably the worst shot in the class. I was from New York City. We didn't have many shooting ranges. We shoot a handgun. We all have access to an MP10 H&K submachine gun, a M4 assault rifle. These are things hopefully we never have to use. In my career, I've had to pull my gun out numerous times. Luckily, I've never been involved in any shootouts. We train 4 times a year on shooting. I always like to say anybody could be a good marksman if you sit there and you stare at a target for 30 seconds and you get that proper sight alignment and that proper trigger pull. But what happens with us in the FBI, they make us shoot outside of cars, they make us do push-ups, they make us deal with different situations, because that's usually what happens. It's an intense situation. After the FBI Academy, I got sent up to Syracuse, New York. I spent 9 years in Syracuse, New York. As an FBI agent, if you would ask me what did an FBI agent do in the 90s, I would say there were bad people who did bad things to good people, and my job was to put them in jail. Very, very simple. I worked a number of bank robbery cases. We had drugs coming in from New York City. With drugs brought violence. The violence brought the carjackings. We had militia groups running through the woods. We had nuclear power plants. We had crimes on military reservations. I mean, and part of our job was to go out, develop people who could help us and cooperate with us. Had a blast in Syracuse, got involved in the world of cybercrime. In 2004, a lot of my peers really kind of made fun of me when I went into the world of cybercrime, because back then we were just dealing with thrill seekers, we were dealing with amateurs, but today we're dealing with organized criminal groups from Russia, from China. We're working a case right now where the bad guys were able to hack into an organization's email account, and they were able to get the email that went from the CEO of the organization to the person who paid the bills, and trick them into sending out $36 million. Once that money's gone, that money is gone forever. We're dealing, and I have no shortage of individuals every day, organizations that are falling for these types of scams. I dealt with online child exploitation. There was no shortages, and I hate to say this, of adults who are looking to have sex with really young kids. And that is why I get out so often and I'm talking to kids at the elementary school level. You guys have common sense. But all of a sudden, right now we have 8-year-olds who have access to iPhones all over the place. And all of a sudden the bad guys are getting online, they're talking to these kids, they're really driving a wedge between the kids, and they're really meeting these kids. One day we had a situation, we have undercover agents who go online, who are working on the internet, who are meeting up with these sexual predators. We had a situation where we had an over-the-road truck driver from Norman, Oklahoma, was talking to one of our undercover agents. He's out there, he's posing, he's pretending that he's going to be a 13-year-old girl. And they're talking back and forth, and all of a sudden this adult wants to have sex with this really young girl. Little does he know it's an FBI agent. Over in the FBI, we kind of got bored one day. We wanted to see how close can we get this guy to come to the FBI office so we can arrest him. Nobody really wanted to move that much that day. So all of a sudden, we give the guy the address, we send him a picture. He thinks he's actually talking to a 13-year-old. So what does he do? He's on his 18-wheeler. He pulls up his laptop. We give him the address of an apartment building that's located about 2 blocks away from the FBI office. And the first thing he does is he looks at it and he says, "Wait a second, your apartment's 2 blocks away from the FBI office." So we're like, uh-oh. But we have to respond like a 13-year-old girl, and we're like, wow, that's really cool. Guy doesn't care. He pulls up in his 18-wheeler right past the FBI building. He thinks that he's going to meet this young girl, and all of a sudden he gets arrested by a bunch of ugly, large FBI agents. He wasn't really happy. What did we recover in his bag? We recovered handcuffs. We recovered stun guns. We recovered all this horrible paraphernalia over here. What he was going to do to that girl, I have no idea. But these are the types of things that we're doing. And that's why we get out so often and talking to the younger kids. The FBI, it's a great career to get into. It's always something really fun. It's always something really, really exciting. Within the FBI, it's very, very competitive. One year we had 350,000 individuals apply for 800 jobs. So the chances really aren't that great. I hear people always say, what kind of career field should I go into if I want to be an FBI agent? I always say a 4-year degree, 3 years of work-related experience. Pick something, because you could apply to become an FBI agent and not get accepted. So what do you want to do? We're looking for a lot of people in the world of technology. That is a really, really big thing. We've hired attorneys. We've hired lawyers. The average age of the FBI agents that are coming in right now are 30 years old. Such a cool job. I can sit here today and probably tell you stories until probably 9 o'clock at night on the cases I worked on the bank robberies, on the kidnapping cases. Just every day is a new and exciting adventure. And really, when you get out into the workforce, you really have to be happy. So let's talk about a couple of things that I see right now that gets people just absolutely kicked out of becoming an FBI agent. I had an opportunity. I sat down with one of my high school senior, one of my neighbor's kid, my neighbor sent her kid over. He wanted to be an FBI agent. So the first thing I said to him as we went through it, okay, he hasn't done drugs. That's great. In the FBI, we'd have a thing, no hard drugs. There's a couple of occasions where they'll make a little leeway for experimental use, but unfortunately when I dealt with people, especially in college, it was either you tried marijuana once or you smoked it every day in college, and that usually gets people kicked out of it. So we sat down and he said, hey, look, I want help becoming an FBI agent. So the first thing we did is went, okay, hey, let's look at all your online accounts. And he looked at me and he said, look, I don't want to do that. And I'm like, look, I'm not telling you what to do. You came here for my advice. I'm going to really be non-judgmental with you, and let's go through this. So all of a sudden, what do? He shows me his Instagram accounts, and he shows me all the pictures of himself at the parties, drinking, a couple of parties, smoking pot, kids really embarrassed. I'm like, look, I'm not going to tell you parents. Don't worry about that. But let's think about that. That stuff is never going away. What are you going to do? I mean, you can start deleting all that stuff, but it is never, ever getting off the internet. And that's why when we talk about the difference between I didn't have a permanent record card, hey, listen, I obviously, when I was your age, I never did anything bad. I can wink and nod. There was no pictures of that. There's no proof. But right now, there's a digital footprint of every single thing you do. I can't tell you how many high school seniors' lives I ended up ruining because they phoned in a bomb threat, or they sent what they thought was an anonymous email. And I'm like, guys, come on. I mean, so we go through all this stuff, and okay, we get through it, and all of a sudden he has all these pictures that are up over there. These are things that come out. And in order to become an FBI agent, you have to go through a polygraph exam. Anyone here think a polygraph exam is fun? Oh, it's horrible. I got to take one every 5 years, and ours is based only on counterintelligence and espionage, because we had an FBI agent who sold secrets to the Russians, so we have to go through one. I hate it, but it's something. So all of a sudden right now when you go through a polygraph exam, what do they ask you? Hey, what are all your email accounts? Did you do drugs? All these things that we end up seeing that get people really, really disqualified. What do I see a lot right now that's happening? I see a lot of sexting going on, a lot of different middle schools, a lot of different high schools, where all of a sudden someone shares a girl shares a topless photo. The girl who, let's say, is 15 or 16 shares a topless photo of herself, shares it with the boyfriend, and what does the boyfriend do? Shares it with 50 of his closest friends, and goes on from there and on and on. And we don't get involved in those things because it's minors. But unfortunately, the district attorney's office doesn't really, according to local statutes, that is considered child pornography. So all of a sudden, every single person who has those photos ends up getting jammed up. So it's just little things like that I see that are happening right now. Things that I didn't have to worry about when I was a kid. When I was your age, the worst thing that we did was, we did vandalism. Not that I ever did any of that stuff. Or we made crank telephone calls. But today, it's just completely different right now with some of the stuff that we're seeing. And believe me, I'm drilling this stuff into my 10-year-old and 13-year-old all the time. When I like to use the example with a lot of the younger kids, when I was probably about 7 years old, my sister at the time took a picture of me. I was in the shower, and then all of a sudden there's a picture of my naked butt. When I say that, the little kids all start laughing and everything like that. And my sister got in so much trouble for that, because there was my picture of the naked butt over there. So what did I do? What did my mom do? We took the picture, we took the negatives, that was it. Think about that right now as I try to explain that to my kids. What would happen right now if my 13-year-old took that picture of my 10-year-old and posted it on Instagram? How many people do you think would see that photo? What do you think? What? How much therapy would I have to, send my 10-year-old to probably try to undo the damage? So these are just a couple of things. Just remember that everything you do kind of has an online footprint that's out there, and also a lot of the employers right now are really going in, they're looking at this type of stuff. And what I want to do is take the next 5 minutes or so, because I want to get you out of here because it is a little hot. I want to see if anyone has any questions about anything I said about careers in the FBI, and I see I have a hand up over there.
What's your take on the
What's my take on the Hillary Clinton email debate? I'm against it. Does that work? No, I mean, you know, the FBI is brought into that investigation. She had sensitive information that was on a server that was being utilized by herself. And a lot of times it's really tricky for the FBI because all of a sudden, I'm glad I'm not involved with that because all of a sudden you could tell that this is becoming a whole political event over here that's being used. But a lot of the stuff that we deal with, and that's one of the things that we get polygraphed on all the time, is classified information and having access to it. But I see some other hands out there. All right. Well, listen, guys, you've been a good audience. I do appreciate it, and I'm going to stick around for a couple of minutes if anyone has any questions.